Okay, this is a basic introduction to creating shapes. Now, the most common thing you're going to do in Illustrator is just create shapes. Logos are shapes. Fonts are basically shapes. I mean, all of these different things are ways of creating shapes. Okay, so let's go into some of the basic ways to create shapes over here on the tool panel. The first one and the most basic one is going to be the shapes panel. Okay, so right here, let's click on the circle and you're going to see the rectangle tool, rounded rectangle tool, ellipse, polygon, star tool, and flare tool. The flare tool I have literally never used, so I'm not going to go into that. Now these tools are, you're basically, I mean, you kind of already know what these do. Okay, so I click the rectangle tool. Whatever color is here is going to be the color that it creates. So let's click that and we can create a rectangle. Okay, now if I hold it and drag down like I'm doing, you can create whatever rectangle you want. If you hold down the shift key, you're going to get a perfect square. Okay, so here is our rectangle. Okay, I'm going to move that over here. Same thing with a rounded rectangle is just a rectangle that has rounded angles. So if I just click once, it'll give you these options as to how you want to create the not only the size of the rectangle, but how much you want to curve the corners. Okay, so let's click OK, and there we go. Or we can just do the same thing here. I can just click and drag this out like that. Okay? Very simple. And on any of these tools, if you just grab them like the rectangle tool, if you just click it like this, click, you can create the rectangle just by putting how big you want the side. So let's do 200 by 200 pixels. Let's see what we get. There we are. Okay. And if I want to change the color, whatever is selected when you go over here to change the color is what will change. So I can change this to kind of a red color. I can select these two and both change them to a green color, which it did not do. Let's see, green color. There we go. All right, let's move on. Circle. This is all kind of, I mean, I don't think it's really all that exciting. Once we get to the polygon tool. Now the polygon tool is cool because you can choose how many points how many corners you want in it. So if I just want to, I'm going to drag it like it is now, and I've got a, what is that? 5 sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Okay. So what is that? Septagon? I'm not going to make an idiot out of myself. But if I click on this and I just click once, I can decide how many sides that I want. So if I just want a triangle, I can go down to 3. The least you can do is 3. So okay, and there's a triangle. Or if I want, as I'm dragging it, I can hit the up key and I can just keep on adding, or I can go down the down keys and I can create as many sides as I want. Okay, so let me delete all those. And the star tool, you know, it's kind of the same thing. I can drag that out and I've got a star. I can hit up and I'm going to get more of these guys. Hit down. I don't use this one a whole lot, to be honest. Delete that. You can also, with the star tool, as you drag it out, you can hit the I'm hitting the Alt key, and let me see. You can, yeah. Now I'm hitting the Control key, and you can, as you're dragging it out, you can just make the little sprite, the little things as you drag it out. I'm just holding down the Control key, and that's what allows you to do that. Okay, and these can be fun for little backgrounds. I'm just clicking these, delete, and you know, if you want to do a bunch like in a background somewhere, this kind of gives you that 60s look. So that's kind of cool. Now over here, let's check out a few more things. Everything here that when you create something, there's nothing that's going to be a raster file. It's all going to be vectors. So if I take the pencil tool, and you can see up here the different brushes, okay? So I'm going to take the pencil tool, and there we go. I'm just drawing with that. One thing that's good to know, and you can make a shape. Let me do Control Z, Control Z. I'm going to make a closed shape, so I'm going to draw a circle, and then as I get to the very edge here, I'm going to hit the Alt key, and now we've created a shape. And we can move that around. We can change the color. You'll notice something over here that I'm going to talk about later. The color of the line is green. If I want to make the color, that means the stroke is green. And over here it shows you what your stroke color is. If you want to change the fill to green, you just click this backwards and you're going to have the fill green. And you can also have the stroke be, you know, another color if you want. And now you've got the stroke is blue. There's a stroke and the fill. And we're going to talk about that later when we talk about colors, but I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so that is the pencil tool. One thing that I use a lot when I use the pencil tool, because I only work with a mouse, a lot of people work with stylus, the tablets, is I double click on this and I put the fidelity and the smoothness. I put the smoothness at 100, which means that it's going to smooth out what you're drawing, and I bring the fidelity down as low as possible, so it's 0.5. Okay, so that basically means that when I'm drawing, it's going to smooth it out for me. See that? Let's change the stroke to like 5. There we go. Now the brush is also a very cool tool to play with, and you can do the same thing with the fidelity here. I'm going to show you what it looks like when the smoothness is down. So I'm going to drag this like that. And you see, oh, well, it actually did smooth it. Fidelity, smoothness. Let me see. I'm going to go like that. Oh, and it is smoothing it out for me anyway. Well, it's being nice. Now, the cool thing about brushes is that you can use different kinds of brushes. You know, you can use artistic brushes. So if this is selected, I can go up here to the brushes, and there's also an option over on this side. There's a palette you can get down, but just for the sake of right now, let's say I want to change this and make it more of like an actual brush. So I'm going to click on this guy, and now you can see this is a cool brush. So I can, I can take this and move some of the anchor points. Let me click off here. Can move the anchor points, and our brush is going to change, based on where we change our anchor points. And we can change the, on this guy, we can change the stroke, so we can make that smaller. And let me show you something real quick. I'm going to touch on this again when we do strokes, but you can also change how wide everything is. So if I click on this guy over here, the width tool, you can stretch out different parts of this, make it smaller, and you can decide how big or small the stroke is. Okay, so there's a stroke. If I want to convert this stroke to an actual shape, which means that all of these things will, this is just the stroke, but if I want to convert it to an actual object, I can go up, and I do this all the time. I go up to Object, Expand Appearance, and now this whole thing is a big vector object. And I can change, the shapes. You'll notice the fill has changed over here. This is a little more advanced, but I just want to kind of jump into it early so that when we see it later, you'll have seen it already. Okay, so I converted a stroke that has an effect on it into an actual object. Okay, but anyway, that's advanced, so I'm not going to stay on that. Now, our other ways of doing things are the pen tool. We're going to talk about the pen tool next, so I'm not going to go into that. And that's really it. I mean, the other things we're going to talk about is how to take, shapes and combine them to make, more complicated shapes. And there's also another tool that if you bring in a line drawing or an illustration or something, you can actually trace that and create a shape out of the trace. But we're not going to go into that yet. That's going to be in a future class. So that's it for creating basic shapes.